Welcome, LTV viewers, and welcome back to another episode of LTV's Cityscope. My name is Carl Piermarini. I'll be your host for this evening, and what this show is about is the who, what, where, when, why, and how of things happening in Leominster, around Leominster, in the environs of Leominster. You get the gist of it. Anyway, today we're going to talk to a local celebrity, local legend, and a local podcaster, Tim Lanza. Tim, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good today.
That's good, that's good. So as we start out in these things, we're going to start out with a little bit of background on you. Some of, let's hear some bio of you.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Leominster. Grew up here, lived here my whole life, went to Leominster High School. I was sent off to college, specifically by both my parents, but especially my father, so that I would never end up working in the car business. He wanted me to get educated and get a real job.
That's good.
So I did.
Yeah.
I went to school, graduated, got a degree in business, started working in a corporate setting, and after about a year or two, I couldn't figure out why I was just absolutely miserable.
Okay.
And fortunately, a very good friend of mine who was, at the time, was very successful and has gone on to be even more successful, had a conversation with me and asked a simple question of, if you could do anything and money was no object, you didn't have to worry about anything, what would you do? And I said I would go home and work with my dad.
Wow.
So here we are.
There you are.
4 or 5 years later.
So you work your day job. You work for your dad at Lanza Automotive on Central Street, way down Central Street, off of Willard. And you've been there for what, 5 years? You said?
Yeah, for like 4.5.
Okay. And you're under cars, on top of cars, inside of cars. You do everything.
All around them.
You do
Yeah.
everything. Well, okay. So that's good. Now we're gonna switch. Yeah, we're gonna switch. Focus on how you got into this whole podcasting deal. So you have an interview show called Local Legacies, is that correct?
Correct.
Tell
yes.
us how that came about.
It was just kind of a combination of things happening all at once. I realized I didn't have much of a creative pursuit.
Okay.
I was just really focused on work. I spent time with my friends and family, and I was trying to think of what could be a creative outlet for myself. I listen to a lot of podcasts and really enjoy them, and so that kind of sparked that idea of maybe this would be an option. I'm lucky enough, my brother has a degree in sound recording technology from UMass Lowell,
Nice.
so that doesn't hurt when you're
Right.
trying to do some audio recording.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I'm very interested in and passionate about is business, and I'm fascinated by people who have decided to take their life into their own hands and choose a route that is non-traditional and try to spend their life doing what they really enjoy.
So, okay, so it wasn't really a focus on history it's more of a focus on people, right? On local people, their lives, what they do, why they do it,
Yeah, I say it's focused mostly on business owners,
Yep.
although I've interviewed and would continue to interview some people that aren't business owners
Right.
if they've got like a center of focus that they've kind
Right.
of dedicated their life to. But I always tell them this is not an advertisement for your business.
Right.
It's an advertisement for who you are as a person and how you got to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And just try to give people an opportunity to tell their story.
Oh, that's good. And I'm sure there's always surprises that come up, when you're doing this. Now your father still works at Lanza, correct?
He does, yeah.
Now, he's been doing that for years, and you interviewed him also on your show,
I
haven't you?
did, yeah. Next year will be 50 years in business for him.
Wow.
So that'll be a big milestone
Yeah.
for anyone.
Keith, I think we have some shots of Tim working on his podcast. Let's see. Why don't you give us number one? Let's take a look at that. Well, we know one is his logo. There's your dad.
Yeah.
There he is. Okay. So he wasn't your first interview, though. He was one in a long succession.
No, he was one of the first I had in mind, but I purposely wanted to get a couple under my belt to try to give him the interview that I felt he deserved.
Right. Now, that location, where do you do these interviews?
So it is building off of Central Street, 218 Central, I believe, kind of above where Classics Pub is.
Okay.
Central Mass Productions,
Yep.
owned by Matt Majikis.
Okay.
Matt is a friend of mine, a mentor, and employer of my brother.
Okay.
So he has really worked with us to give us the space, and then we have in turn tried to help him build out that space and create like a proof of concept for his business so that he would be able to provide it as a service.
Yeah, we met Matt not too long ago. He was working doing the funeral of Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
And
My brother as well. Did
right,
audio.
and he had to borrow some equipment from us, and we got to meet him, and he does fantastic job.
He's a great guy, a very hard worker, and it was one of my guests on the first season. He's got a pretty incredible story himself.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's good. So you've interviewed, how many have you done so far?
20.
20. So I know I'll kind of put you on the spot, but what are some of the ones that kind of stand out to you?
Well, this one's top of mind. I will say, first of all, my dad, for sure, he's kind of what the show was based off of, the concept and the idea of, business, family, community, and self, how you've been able to grow in all those different areas. So he definitely was, that was a big one. But I will say it's top of mind. Last night I interviewed Ned LaFortune, who was the founder of Wachusett Brewery.
Oh, yeah.
That was someone that I had in mind from the beginning and just figured, probably no chance of that happening.
Right.
And it was able to happen. So that was
really cool.
Pretty great and an absolutely amazing story, amazing conversation, and really a kind, incredible person.
Do you do a little background research on these people before?
Definitely.
Okay.
So what I like to try to do is have a conversation with them before on the phone, maybe like 20, 30 minutes, get a feel for some people I talk to for 10 minutes and it's just like, hey, we're going to be fine. I'll see you at this time.
Right.
Some people I try to get some more info, do research if I can, and then look at it through the lens of if this person was my hero, what would I be most in awe of or what would I be most proud of, and then try to go into the interview with that mindset.
That's pretty cool. That's a great way to do it. So then you prepare a list, but you don't necessarily stick to your question list. Is it depending on how the conversation steers, or?
I have usually 3 questions that I think I want to hit on and one that I want to end it with, just so that the listener feels like if they spend an hour with us listening to this conversation, this is why I listen to get this piece out of it. But I pretty much just kind of let them talk and let my curiosity lead the conversation.
That's cool, because what that does is it proves that you're really listening to them and not looking at your questions and saying, okay, after he's done with this, I'm going to ask this next question. So you really listen to them. You concentrate on what they're saying, and that's how that's a great. That's how you separate good interviewers from lousy interviewers, like myself. No, I'm using this just as a guide, folks. I'm getting away from these questions, so don't worry about it. So you've been staying mostly with business people, right?
Correct.
Do you have an idea to branch out to some other areas, or?
Yeah, I interviewed someone who obviously you know very well, my Uncle Peter, who I would consider, an environmentalist. So I've considered interviewing people, who are religious leaders. I don't want to get too involved with politics necessarily, but basically someone who's decided to live life on their own terms and is focused on creating abundance for themselves and then giving it back to the people around them. That would be like a person who fits my ideal profile.
That's really cool. And the interesting part about that whole thing is you are creating a legacy or an archive of these people and their stories, So that's an important archive to have. It's really it's a great idea. I think it's fantastic. So where can they listen to you?
So right as of now, basically anywhere that you can get podcasts. So if you're a podcast listener, you already know where that is, but Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and if you listened on another platform and it's not on there, it's only because I didn't know you were listening there. So I can get it on there.
Okay.
And then YouTube is where a lot of people who are not podcast listeners would access it, and it's an audio file that's been uploaded.
Okay.
Just because it's like everyone pretty much uses YouTube.
I know it's become the standard where people go first to do things, but it still must cost you something, to spread out on all these platforms. Where does your funding come from? Does it?
I just pay for it out of pocket. Yeah.
Okay. Now he does. That could change.
Yeah, that's funny. We just after finishing last night, Matt did a video of the interview with Ned, and we were talking about potentially putting some money into production and adding value there. And obviously it'd be nice to, I don't really care. I'm not interested necessarily in making money at this point, but I'd love to pay my brother, who works very, very hard. We probably each spend 5 hours an episode, him on the editing and production side, me on the research and then post marketing.
Right.
I'd love to pay him. I don't do it for that, but I think the people that are working hard to help me kind of bring this together deserve to get paid.
Mm-hmm. Have you thought of doing? I'm wondering if you are doing it visually. Are you doing like anything on Zoom or on a platform like a YouTube channel where we actually watch the interviews?
So we have not so far. We did on the interview yesterday. Matt was interested in doing that, and he operated his. He has a camera set up and operated that. It's, as you know, a lot of work.
Yes.
So it's a matter of where this is like a side project for me and for my brother as well. How much work do we want to add to the equation? And also, some people I've spoken with, very comfortable on a microphone, very comfortable in front of a camera.
Right.
They've done it, many times. Other people have never spoken on a microphone before. So my goal is to make them feel as comfortable as possible.
Right.
And usually, like, sticking a camera in someone's face isn't necessarily the way to get that.
They clam up. I mean, we see that all the time. We'll be interviewing somebody, and you spend a half hour interviewing, and the interview's done, and then they shut the cameras off, and all of a sudden they come out with these stories. Well, why didn't you say that on camera? So that happens a lot, But I would love, and the invitation's always open. If you guys do something on video, we would love to, to help, broadcast that for you here. That would be fantastic.
Sure, and when, I think Matt's going to edit down, obviously with him helping us out, I do feel, loyal to him and what he's done for us.
No, I don't blame you.
But we can, I'm sure, get you that copy of that video if it's something you'd like to put out. I feel like the more people that have access to it and see it and hear these stories, the better.
Right.
Because a lot of them are really stories that deserve being told or heard.
And then it might be a little more appealing for you to possibly get some local sponsors to sponsor, your show. And maybe, with that visual element, it might be a little more appealing to people that see their logos and stuff associated with it. But that's interesting. So, any other cool stories that may have stuck in your head
I'm sure there's a bunch, just like I said, top of mind from our interview last night. Ned in the early days talking about they had a unique situation where they distributed their own beer, which at the time no one was really doing. Right. And he said they basically just loaded up a truck and a trailer. They brewed as much beer as they could, put it in a truck and a trailer, and someone went out, and you don't come back until everything's sold.
That's how you start. That's the way to do it. That's interesting. That's really cool. So how about the future? Let's look for the future. What do you hope to do? I mean, we talked a little bit about maybe getting video involved, but you want to keep doing this? How long are you going to keep doing it?
I really enjoy it. I really do. I enjoy having conversations. One interesting and good problem to have is, some of the guests that I had this season were like my reach guests. Yep. It's like this is like the best case scenario I could get these people on. Well, it's kind of like, now what? So it's maybe dream a little bigger, and hopefully people that are listening may know. A lot of the best stories are people that you may not know or may not be the big names that you think of.
Right.
It's hard just on my own sometimes to get access to those stories, and I try to do the legwork, but if other people are listening and they have someone that they think would be a good fit, and no promises, but have a conversation with them preliminarily, and see if it would be something that. The whole crux of it really, or what drives it, is like my curiosity and interest in talking to someone. So if that is there, then I'd be excited to have a conversation with them.
That's great. I've always in the back of my mind, you're going down the street and you see somebody and you're wondering, what's that guy's story? What's this person's story? So that's what you're doing, basically. You're letting these people tell their stories, and there may be a lot of surprises in there. There always are surprises with people that you would never think. Wow, I didn't realize that guy was a violinist in the Boston Symphony, and he lives in Leominster or whatever. So there's always going to be that, and I think that's what helps make it, really interesting.
Well, and I think what's important too is a lot of those, like the big signs and the big names and that you think of, and you're like, oh, it must be nice to be that guy.
Right.
It's like, well, was it nice to be working 80 hours a week? Was it nice to be not paying yourself for 4 years? Those are the stories that get forgotten, not by the person, but by all the other people that see the success at the end.
And some of the people, the big names, like you're saying, a lot of times people don't know their whole story either. So, that's another part of it. So you get plenty of material, I think, in this area to keep yourself going for a while. But that's really cool. Well, I think I love the idea of a video part of this whole thing. You have a face for video versus audio only.
I was told I have a face for radio.
No, they were lying. You have a face for video. I think you're good. So I'd love to see this develop more, and I'm dying to hear more of the interviews you do. And I think you just need, how do you promote? How do you promote the
everything I do myself through social media. I have like an Instagram page for the podcast and a Facebook page, and then I'll try to share that out onto like the Leominster Facebook group or the Fitchburg Facebook group.
That's cool.
I think that it's definitely not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but there'll be certain people that will hear one and listen to the other 19.
Well, that's what I do. If I'm working and, doing something in my basement, in the garage or something, and I'll throw on a podcast and listen. That's how I listen. And I'm sure a lot of people do the same. So that's what makes it, a podcast worthwhile, to listen to. So, well, that's good. I'm not sure. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Have we covered the whole gist?
Covered everything that I can think of at the moment.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work, and I hope things develop and go in a direction you want them to go.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching Cityscope, and tune in again. Thank you for watching.